Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be about the pros and cons of the medication Olanzapine. I am filming this video from my bed as it's the easiest way to get an angle on my phone. I'm resting it against some stuff, so hopefully that's okay, and hopefully this can help educate you on the positives and negatives of this medication. So I take Olanzapine. I've been taking it for I think around 4 years now, so I'd say I know a fair bit about the good parts of it and the bad parts of it, and I would like to just do a video on, do I find it effective? I thought this video could be of some use for people, say if you're discussing this medication with your doctor currently and would like a bit more information, or maybe you've come across it yourself and it's something that you're wanting to discuss. So I like to hear from people's personal experience, so that's why I'm making this video today. Just a little disclaimer, I've got to do this, but I am not a doctor or a mental health professional. I'm just a girl who's making a YouTube video who is prescribed Olanzapine. I've been taking it back since 2016. I knew nothing about it when I started taking it, so I hadn't even heard of it at the time, and I wish I'd had this information then. So yeah, hopefully this can be of help to you. So that's enough of the babbling part. Let's get into the video. What I'm going to do is 3 of the main pros, 3 of the main cons, and then a little conclusion as to how I feel personally about the medication. Okay, so pro number 1 is it keeps my mood stable. So Olanzapine works by balancing the dopamine and serotonin levels in the brain, which is extremely important to keeping your mood well balanced. So too little dopamine can help lean towards depression, whereas too much dopamine can lead towards mania and ultimately psychosis. You'd think having an excess of dopamine would be a good thing and you'd feel like woo and it'd be great, but honestly psychosis is not pleasant in the slightest. I have very distinct highs and distinct lows with my mood, so I've experienced both ends of the spectrum, and I'd honestly say that I find the extreme mania even more distressing than the depressive episodes. The mania would cause me extreme irritability, racing thoughts to the point where I couldn't even focus on one thought at a time, and the words would just come out jumbled up, like not even in the right order, and I even lost touch with reality on a few occasions. Olanzapine definitely helps with this, and it helps keep me on a sort of a level playing field. Let me just note as well that I am still able to experience extreme euphoria on this medication, which is really important to me because I live for that feeling. It just helps prevent it from going too far one end of the spectrum or the other. So pro number 2, it keeps me safe. Before I started on this medication, I was very prone to making impulsive decisions and just performing rash behaviour, which led me to some very sticky situations and really got me in a pickle many times. I have BPD, so my brain has always been like an all or nothing mentality, which led to many issues such as substance abuse, putting myself in risky situations, and the worst of all was poking out my right eye. I had to have it amputated, so that's a whole other video. I haven't spoken about that on this channel yet, but it was not nice. I could never trust myself to make safe or morally right decisions, but now I take this medication, it has dramatically helped with these issues. I'm now able to think things through before acting on impulse, so think about the consequences to my actions, which is extremely difficult with BPD, so that has been a complete godsend, and I truly do believe that this has saved my life, as previously I was engaging in very self-destructive behaviours due to the intensity of my emotions. The very best way I can think to describe this in a simple term is my brain being nicely coated with cotton wool. So my thoughts and emotions feel a lot calmer and more rational. I don't feel intense emotional pain like I used to. I started off taking 10 milligram a day of this medication, which in all honesty did make me feel a bit like a zombie, but once I dropped down to the 5 milligram, when I started improving, I now feel like I can function normally and I am me, just a safer version. Okay, and pro number 3, it gives my brain the rest that it needs. So this one is a biggie for me. Before starting on this medication, my brain literally never stopped. I'm sure a lot of you watching will be able to relate to this. I'd overanalyze everything, ruminate over things constantly like I was stuck in some kind of loop. So it'd include at night when I was trying to get some sleep, it'd be like 1 AM or later, and I'd be sat there fretting over a conversation I'd had with a cashier maybe earlier that day, like, oh, did I sound stupid? Should I have said that? It literally gets to the point where I'd be driving myself insane with all these negative thoughts about myself. It actually got to the point where I started to go a bit crazy with these thoughts, and my dad found me on a few occasions, so more than one occasion, walking around circles in my bedroom, having conversations with myself out loud about all these thoughts that were in my head. I would just talk to myself constantly because I'd feel like this pressure building up in my head and in my brain, and it would just sort of leak out my mouth in a random sequence of words. This might sound odd to some people, but I want to keep this video as honest as possible, even if it does make me sound like a bit of an oddball. So I am pleased to report this is no longer a common occurrence since I started taking this medication. My thoughts are still all there, which is a really good thing because I didn't want to take a drug that was just going to stifle my thoughts completely. But they come to me at a much more manageable pace now, and I'm able to concentrate on one thing at a time rather than getting overwhelmed. I no longer get repeated panic attacks and anxiety attacks due to the overthinking. I don't want to jinx myself, but that doesn't happen to me anymore, and like I say, they occur to me at a much steadier pace now, which I like much more. So now for the cons of this medication. So I am not trying to deter anyone from taking Olanzapine. The cons were only temporary for me, but I don't want to sugarcoat it either and make out like there are no side effects whatsoever, because there were. When I was on 10 milligram, they were much more prevalent, but since I've dropped down to 5 milligram, I don't really experience the negatives anymore, but I'm going to run through the top 3 that I did feel. So con number 1 was excessive drowsiness. So I was first prescribed this medication when I was in a mental health facility, and can remember the first couple of weeks taking it, I was drowsy as hell. From the first day that I started taking it, I slept a lot more than previously, but this isn't necessarily a negative for me and could also be down to a few factors. Sorry about that. So before being admitted onto the ward, I wasn't looking after myself very well at all. I was extremely sleep deprived, as well as generally unhealthy and run down. I had a solid 12-hour plus sleep the first night after taking Olanzapine, and when I woke up the next day, I'd been in such a deep sleep. It took me a good, at least an hour to bring myself round and figure out what was going on. The dreams you have are so vivid. They definitely were for me, and they still are to this day. I know this is a common side effect for people, but I actually really enjoy the vivid dreams, so I don't see it as a con. But if you're, say, prone to nightmares, you might not like this side effect. I remember being on the ward, and I had to walk down a corridor to get to the recreation room where the TV and like the leisure activities were, and the corridor seemed to stretch in front of me for miles. So I don't know if you've seen Wolf of Wall Street, but there's a scene where he's looking at a flight of stairs, and in reality there's only a few steps there, but in his mind they drag on for like an eternity. It was kind of like that, and I had to shuffle my way along, and it probably took me about half of the afternoon to reach the end of this corridor. Luckily though, this level of drowsiness wore off pretty quickly, and I never feel like that anymore. I do still feel groggy in the morning though, and I sleep longer hours than I used to before I started taking it. I like to get about 10 hours sleep a night now, which I know is higher than average, but I'm a very active person anyway, so I probably need the extra sleep just to recharge. Con number 2, restless legs at first. So as far as I'm aware, this isn't actually that common. I've looked into it, but it definitely was for me at the beginning. It was not a pleasant feeling, and after sticking it out for 2 days without any improvement, I told my doctor I needed something to help stop with the restless legs, or I was going to have to stop taking the Olanzapine because it was just that uncomfortable. There is actually a drug available, I don't know what the name is, to directly counteract this, but they wouldn't prescribe it to me because I was coming off another substance at the time, and they said the restless legs were due to this and not the Olanzapine, and it would rectify itself. I know for a fact it was the Olanzapine because I had never experienced this before. The worst of it lasted around 2 or 3 days, I think. When I was walking around, it felt absolutely fine, going about my day-to-day, whatever. But when I was sitting or lying down, it was pretty bad and uncomfortable. So to alleviate it, my best friend, I'd have to put my legs like resting up, and they would just massage them for me. I have the best friend ever. Yeah, that really helped. After the first few days, this subsided and disappeared, but I really wanted to just mention it because it nearly put me off taking it completely. I didn't know that this feeling was going to go away. It's unlikely you'll experience it at all, but if you do, it's only temporary. So it's not the medication itself that makes you gain weight, it's the fact that it increases your appetite, which in turn, of course, makes you eat more. So increased appetite does seem to be a big side effect. When I've looked into it, it's a very common side effect for people. And I did find that I experienced this personally too, but there were a few other factors as to why I had an increased appetite. So I'm just going to talk you through that now. So when I started on Olanzapine, I was around a stone underweight. I think I was about 7 stone at the time, or maybe just under. And like I mentioned before, I was on a hospital ward. So I stayed on the ward for about a month. And within that month, I gained pretty much bang on 1 stone, taking me up to 8 stone and a healthy weight for the first time in years. Woohoo! But there are many contributing factors towards this. And I want to mention this because I don't think it was purely down to the medication. So when you're in hospital, there's very little to do during the day, and I was very sedentary for my entire stay. I'm normally very active, I work out pretty much daily. I wasn't exercising at all during this month on the ward. I spent most of my time either sleeping, watching TV, or just doing something steady away like an adult colouring book or something. I was hardly burning any calories at all, which will have contributed towards weight gain. Another huge factor is that when you're in hospital, there's very little to look forward to apart from meal times. I was eating 3 square meals a day for the first time in a very long time. I had been virtually starving myself before I was admitted, and I was also brought lots of chocolates and treats from friends pretty much daily. And because I was bored, I just ate a lot more than I normally would. Once I was discharged after the month and went back to my normal lifestyle, my weight went back to normal. So what happens now is I can still get cravings for food on a night because I take my medication at night, which I'll discuss in a minute. So I find that I satisfy that with like a strip of dark chocolate, or my ultimate favourite, a hot chocolate with soya milk. So I think the appetite thing really just depends on what your relationship with food is like currently. So if you already eat sensibly and don't have any issues around eating, say binge eating or restricting or something like that, then you'll likely be just fine and not experience any weight gain. If you do have issues around food, I definitely discuss this with your doctor because you might want to look at an alternative, but I don't know, I'm not a professional, so discuss it with them. So that leads us to the conclusion of this video. So to wrap up, in conclusion, I must say that I was skeptical about all medication in the past and refused exploring this avenue for a very long time until my mental health got too severe to combat with therapy alone. So I was hesitant to start taking Olanzapine, but can honestly say it has been a lifesaver for me, literally, and I do think it can be an effective treatment for many people. The main issues it's helped me with massively is psychosis and my irregular mood, and I can now lead a much more balanced, content and happy life because of it. The main unpleasant side effects subsided within a few weeks max, which I wish I would have known at the time because I was worried they would continue forever, which they did not. Something that I think is a really important point to make just towards the end of this video is that I found that taking my medication just before I go to bed, because I also take mirtazapine and diazepam, which are sedating meds as well, has solved all these cons, because it doesn't matter if I'm drowsy, as it enables me to get a good night's sleep. So once I take my meds for the evening, I'm flat out asleep within like 30 minutes without fail every single night. So I just advise take it on a night time. And to combat the morning grogginess, which I do still get, that's one of the only cons that I still say that I experience, and I have a nice and sturdy morning routine that enables me plenty of time to bring myself back round. Then I am good to go for the day. I still get the vivid dreams every single night, which I personally love because I find them so pleasant and entertaining. One in particular was I was eating a buffet of food in this dream I was having, and there was like eclairs and stuff and cakes, and when I woke up from the dream I could still physically taste the food I was eating, unless I'd just been sleepwalking and had eaten an eclair. I'm not sure, but yeah, I really like the vivid dreams. And the last point to mention, if you're on this medication already and want to stop taking it for any reason, never come off it cold turkey. I actually did try to do this once without informing my doctor. Very stupid indeed, and it was like hell on earth. I would never ever do that again. If you want me to do a separate video on Olanzapine withdrawal, leave a comment below and I'll be happy to talk about my experience with that, as I really don't want anyone else to go through that. So I hope you found this video helpful, and please subscribe for future content and leave a like if you enjoyed. See you in the next one.